Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Tarrant with TLR. Today I'm going to show you guys how I rebuild my diffs. I've had a couple people online ask me what's the right way, what's the best way, and I'm going to kind of give you just a quick rundown of how I rebuild my diffs. Um, Other people may do things differently, and that's okay, but I'm going to show you how I do it. And maybe something in the way I do things may help you down the road in your diff rebuild. Today I'm working with my center diff out of my TLR 8 XTE, getting ready to go to Psychonitro Blast. So my pit's kind of a mess. I've been rebuilding my buggies up here. They're all ready to go, and today is rebuild the truck day. So again, this is just a stock diff out of the truggy, 46 or 48 tooth pinion. Pretty much what I'm going to show today will work with all the diffs on the market: Associated, HB, Kyosho. They all carry the same sort of internals and what to do, what to look for, etc. So let's get started. First, I'm going to take the 4 screws off, and I always start with the gear part, and I put the cup part in a just regular soda bottle, and I let it drain. And while I'm doing the gear end of it, so we'll get started here and take this thing apart. Now, what I do is I'll take my cup section and I just set it on top of that bottle just like so. And it actually will drain. As you can see, it's doing right now. It's actually draining the fluid out. And like I said, I just set it there, and I do all my other stuff with this one first while that's draining. That way I don't have to wait on it. So what we're going to do now is I use a pair of needle nose, grab the outside of the gear, pull it straight up, set it off to the side. I pull my pin, set it off to the side on a paper towel that it's okay to get dirty. This is just my clean work area here. So, and we're going to pull this out. I've actually got this is just a dirty rag, and try to wipe it as clean as possible. Some have this washer, some do not. Now, some people will pull that and remove it, the gasket. I've never had any of my diffs leak. Maybe it's I'm lucky. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what it is, but um, it's always good to pull this off and check it. I'm using an X-Acto knife, but I'm using the flat edge of it just to get underneath it so I can get it up. And I pull my O-ring, set it off to the side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just clean up everything as best I can. I'm going to pull my bearing off. Send it off to the side. And I get this area right here as clean as possible, because there's the bearing sits on there, and you can see some wear when you get yours apart and get a good look at it. And like I said, I just clean it up as best I can. I inspect the inside where this is sitting. If it looks pretty good, doesn't look to be a lot of wear, one thing you can do is take your rag, make a little point. Make sure it sticks through a little bit. Just wipe it out. Again, we're just making sure everything's clean. So I start with my bearing. After this is all clean, I start with my bearing. I wipe the grease off of it and any residue that may be on the bearing, in the race of the bearing, and inside of this lip. The Losi has the lip on the bearing. I just make sure that lip is nice and clean. And one thing I do that may be different from everybody else is, after I inspect it, make sure there's no grittiness to it, I will set it with the flange side up. And I use Super Lube. Get this on Amazon. I think it's like $7 or $8. And I put a couple drops on it, just on the bearing. And I let that soak in. Now we come back here to our out drive. Now this is kind of important. So you want to make sure, let me get it clean, that way you can really get a good eye on it. So to me, what did I do with my knife? So inside of this is a little ridge or a little indentation. And the base of this out drive has to be exceptionally clean. Usually you can get it just wiping it down. You can see that little ridge a little bit. What I do is I'll take the edge of the towel here, put my fingernail in there, and just get it as clean as possible. Again, I do the bottom because that bearing sits on the bottom. So we need to make sure that that's fairly clean. Now, usually I would be halfway done by now, but I'm giving you guys kind of an example of how I do in slower motion. So we're going to double check where your O-ring sits. It looks fairly good. I actually use an O-ring grease. Excuse me. But you can use your lithium grease or a real light grease. I forgot that one's not open yet. This one is. And I put just a dab on my finger, and I put it right inside where that O-ring sits. Just takes a little dab, move it back and forth. Again, it's not crucial, but this is just one of these steps that I take. I clean my O-ring real good, just make sure it doesn't have any debris on it. and I place it back inside. Move it around a little bit, make sure it's sitting in that grease. Now we're going to go back to our bearing. It's been sitting in a little bit of oil. It's all soaked inside. Like I said, I just put a few drops on it. I just want a little bit of oil in there. I don't have to get real crazy with it. Everything's clean. Again, just a quick wipe down. Put it back on. I wasn't supposed to do that. Now we're going to take the outdrive and the gear, and I'm going to put it in until it touches that O-ring. Notice I haven't pushed it through. We're going to take our TLR black grease, and I'm going to go around that little indentation like I showed you. Kind of gobbed it on there. Now what I do is I will spin it, and what I'm doing is I'm working the grease into that groove. That's what I'm looking for. And then when I pull it out, I want to look at that groove. You really can't see it all that well. I got a horrible camera situation going on here. But what we're looking for is for that groove right there to be full of grease. Because what happens as this, excuse me, as you push back in, now that grease is acting as a buffer between metal and metal. So you definitely want to make sure that you have plenty of grease. And I always pull mine out and I'll spin it. And what I'm looking for is for that groove to be completely full of grease. Once I see that, I'm okay with it. You'll have a little grease between your bearing and your cup. That's okay. Some people will wipe it out. I leave it. It doesn't really matter. It's irrelevant. Yes, it will attract dirt. I know. Now we're going to put our washer back on. Place it right on top there. We'll take our pliers, put our pin back in. Just like so. Now we'll just kind of wipe the washer or the gasket a little bit. Make sure we don't have any rips and tears on it. Again, the way I have done this, I've never had a diff leak on me. Gasket looks like it's in pretty good shape. So we'll go ahead and put it back on and put it in place. One thing you can do, get this back out. One thing you can do is take yourself just a smidge of white grease, and I mean just a smidge, and you could just roll it around where that gasket sits. Put your gasket back on, and that'll actually hold it in place. That way you don't have to worry about, you know, it coming loose, it coming off. It's on there. The grease is holding it on there. And you didn't put a lot on there to begin with, So you're just asking for a little tackiness out of it. So we're done with this one, and we'll set that to the side. Now we've got the cup, and I may go a little bit faster with this one because what we do here actually is fairly easy. So we have our 4 gears that are inside. I take my needle nose and I go to the bottom crossbar, not the top one, to pull everything out at once. Again, the bottom crossbar, not the top one, and pull everything out at once. Pulled everything out at once. Set it to the side. We're going to pull our other sun gear out. Set it to the side. Pull our pin out. Now, some companies have that set screw on the side. You just pull the screw out and you can pull that pin out that way. Losie's not that way. So okay, so I have seen and heard 100 different ways of rebuilding a diff. Some people say you got to make sure it's spotless on the inside. Some people say it's got to be just wiped out. Some people say technically go wash it in your dishwasher. Yeah, I've heard it. No, don't need to do all that. Again, this is just the way I do them. Actually feels pretty good. Those are new bearings, so they shouldn't be bad or be gritty. Again, we're just putting a couple drops on it. While we're doing everything else, all that oil will seep into that bearing. So we've gotten everything out of our diff cup. I'm going down in diff fluid from 15.5 down to 10. I think I may even go 12.5. Psycho Nitro Blast is going to be a green track when I get there, so I will be doing some diff changes throughout the day as the traction comes up. So on a blue groove track, I run 15.5 in the center and 10 in the front and 5 in the rear. I don't really mess with the rear too much. It's really not. I don't need to really go up very much. Now, see, I've wiped that out, and I know you guys can't see it very good. All I've done is just wipe it out. You can take a little WD-40 or electrical cleaner. If you run 10th scale and you have the big can of electrical cleaner, just give it a little shot. You don't need a whole lot. I was going to do it without shooting WD-40 in it, but I decided, you know what, I'll show you. And if I'm at the track, I won't go through all this. Typically, I will wipe it out once, and then I'll change my fluids. As you can tell, all my stuff is sitting over here. It's all the oil's draining out of it. So when you use something else to clean the inside of this, you have to pay special attention to make sure you get it all out. You have, because it can and will break down the viscosity of the diff fluid. If there's, kind of goes to my house. Box just fell. So again, you want to get it all out. A Q-tip works really good, but then you got to make sure that everything's out of it. So we're going to just reverse the process here. Again, take a little bit of grease, not very much. Clean our O-ring. Put our O-ring back in. We're going to clean this up really good. Again, make sure you get the base and that groove as clean as possible. So again, I just use a rag, stick my fingernail in it, and then do my fingernail on the bottom. We get that thing as clean as possible. So, again, we're inspecting for any unusual wear, and we're inspecting any unusual wear inside. So let's take a look at our bearing. Nice and smooth. Oh, I forgot to wipe that off. Wipe off the outside of our cup. Put our bearing on. Put it in about halfway. Go around it, filling in that groove. Very important. I like to spin it and work it inside. Now I'll pull it out just to make sure that groove is full of grease. And I wish you guys could see it, but it's plumb full of grease. I'm okay to go ahead and put it in place. My O-ring popped out. If you have that problem, you can stick your finger in there and push the cup back up, and the O-ring will slide down the shaft. Inspect our washer. Some have them, some do not. I take my needle nose and I'll just push down on the washer like so, and it will actually make sure everything's flush. Take our pin, put our pin back in. Now this is where I differ from a lot of different people. If you've noticed, I have both my sun gears here. They've been draining. I'm just going to make sure they're clean. And yes, I do not have a sun gear on this. And I'll show you why here shortly. So, and then all my other gears have been sitting here draining with fluid. So this is what I do. Again, I've been using VRP. I am sponsored by VRP, so I'm not really promoting them. They're just the best product on the planet. So with my sun gear out, I'm going to fill it up about a quarter way. And then we're going to take our sun gear. And my pin moved a little bit. Excuse me. I'm going to line my pin up with two of the holes. I'm going to take my sun gear, line it up with two of the holes, and drop it in there. Boop. Now I can take my pliers and just make sure that it's all sitting flat. You can of course see inside of there that it is all, you can't see. Okay. Why did I do it that way? I did it that way because what it does is it puts a layer of oil down. You put your sun gear on top of it, pushes the oil out. You do not have, or you will have very little air bubbles up underneath, trapped up and under the sun gear. You can sit here and spin it and get all the bubbles out, but I have no bubbles in my diff oil right now. None. So we're going to go back to our gears here. Make sure everything's pointing down. And I'm going to drop them right in place. Don't be in a hurry. Just take your time with it. Slowly push down on the oil. Try not to turn it if you can. And on TLR, they sit just below the outside top, as you can see. Okay, so again, this is just how I do it. I don't have any issues with any of my divs, ever. So now that you've got your, now notice I have not put any more oil in it, right? Now you're going to take your next sun gear, which goes on your other section here, and you're going to take the lines of the gear, and you're going to do the same thing you did when you put the other gear in, when you put it on top. So we're just going to drop it on there. As you can see, they're lined up with the holes. Now you can see there's a little fluid up on top. We're just going to wipe it all away. We're not pushing down on anything. We're not doing anything out of the ordinary. We're just wiping it all away. Wiping it off the gear. And as you can tell, the fluid is just under the bevel part of the gear, right? You can see the case is clean. There's no oil sticking out. But you can also see that the oil is right to the edge. Again, we just wiped away the excess stuff up on top. Nothing, again, nothing crazy. Now we have the lines. We have it lined up, right? With the holes. Take this, line it up with the screw holes. Now, when I screw mine down, I do not screw it all the way into the case. I always stop a little short. I don't screw them all the way down because I don't want the torque of this trying to push that screw down further into the case and strip out the case. Hand tight till it stops, 1/16 of a turn. Hand tight, 1/16 of a turn. Hand tight, 1/16 of a turn. I just technically just don't move it, or I don't tighten it up as hard. I don't need to wrench on it. Now, we'll wipe off the outside of the case real good. Smooth. No oil on the outside. Again, I should have just showed you this when I was doing it, but there's no oil on the outside. There's no excess fluid anywhere. It's quick. It's easy. It's efficient. And when you're at the track and you're racing and you need to change something real quick, that's what you need to be efficient. So that was how I rebuild my diffs. And this goes for all my diffs. I do them all the exact same way. Get yourself in that habit, and your diff changes will go a lot smoother every time. I recommend once a month. If you're racing every weekend, like Saturdays, once a month. Especially pay attention to your rear diff that has lighter oil, like 4K or 5K, because the diffs will, that oil will break up faster than a 10K or 12K or 15K. So yeah, if you have any problems, questions, concerns, let me know if there's anything I can help you out with. But that's how we rebuild a diff in a Losi 8 XTE, and we'll see you next time.